Me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is comedian Leo Kearse and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albi Amankona. Before we get started though, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister will travel to Eastern Europe next week as part of efforts to prevent a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Downing Street say Boris Johnson is determined to accelerate diplomatic efforts and will also speak to President Putin on the phone. He'll consider a range of options to discourage Russian aggression, including fresh military deployments and bolstering NATO defences. Speaking to GB News, former Defence Secretary Ian Duncan-Smith urged the European Union now to stand up to Russia.
If they invade Ukraine, I think it is a threat to the way we live our lives. It is a threat to NATO. This is a democracy. It's a country that has the right to free choice. We've been giving them arms. I wish the rest of the European Union now would actually back up what the UK and America are doing.
In other news, a 60-year-old woman has been killed by a falling tree in Aberdeen as Storm Malik hit with winds of up to 100 miles per hour. Northern power grids say power supplies and mobile phone coverage has been affected in northern parts of the UK. A shopping centre in Sunderland was also evacuated after damage was caused to its glass roof. Yellow weather warnings for wind remain in place across much of the UK. A former Attorney General has criticised the Met Police over its handling of the Downing Street party allegations. Lord Morris says he's dismayed with Scotland Yard after Sue Gray was asked to make sure her report made minimal reference to number 10 events they were looking into. It's led to claims that police were delaying its publication. Former advisor to Theresa May, Joey Jones, thinks the police should reflect now on their own conduct.
Probably the Met that have more questions to ask themselves at the moment as to how they've allowed themselves to get into a situation where there's so much cynicism, so much anger that could have been avoided quite easily just by being a bit more transparent and a bit more upfront about the reasons behind their decision making.
A major overhaul of the highway code has come into force today, and there are concerns that millions of drivers are simply unaware of the changes. New guidance means traffic will have to give way when pedestrians cross at a junction. Cyclists should also prioritise riding in the centre of lanes on quieter roads to make themselves more visible. The changes aim to boost protection for cyclists and pedestrians. Edmund King, president of the AA, spoke to GB News earlier.
141 cyclists were killed on the roads last year, more than 4,000 injured. Some 5 people every day actually die on the road. So it's trying to say, look, the roads are there, they're there to be shared.
Police have arrested a man on suspicion of racially abusing former England footballer Ashley Cole. The incident reportedly occurred when Swindon Town played Manchester City earlier this month during an FA Cup third-round tie. Cole, who played for Arsenal and Chelsea, was part of the broadcast pundit team. Wiltshire police have confirmed a 24-year-old remains in custody. Older people may have to go without food or heat this winter as energy bills continue to rise. Age UK claim nearly a quarter of people over 65 say they'll be forced to choose between heating their home or buying food if bills increase substantially. Meanwhile, more than half think they'll have to heat their homes less because of inflation and the soaring cost of living. A beach in the Gulf of Thailand has been declared a disaster area after an oil spill from an underwater pipeline. Around 50,000 litres of oil has leaked into the ocean, spreading across 18 square miles and blackening the sand. 15 ships, along with a number of aircraft, are working to contain the spill at sea with barriers while spraying chemical dispersants. And the Canadian singer Joni Mitchell has asked streaming site Spotify to remove her music over COVID misinformation concerns. The Grammy Award winner says the site allows irresponsible people to spread lies that were costing people their lives. Earlier this week, Neil Young removed his catalogue from Spotify, reportedly due to its hosting of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which has been known to air the views of vaccine skeptics. Well, this is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's return to Nana.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on your digital radio. So let me get this straight. This week, they were having a pop at Boris because he may have denied having a hand in saving lots of animals out of Afghanistan. And if Joe Biden hadn't changed the rules and the Taliban hadn't stopped pen farthing, Boris may have had a hand in even being able to get people out as well. Boris has called the suggestion...
This whole thing is total rhubarb.
Now, at the time, Tom Tugendhat had said, "What if an ambulance went to save your dog and not your mother?" He pointed out that lots of troops were required to escort Pen Farthing's rescue animals through Kabul airport, whilst his interpreter's family are likely to be killed. The media sapped this up, of course, and there was a huge backlash against Pen Farthing, although he did get some support. OK, so from Pen Farthing's mouth himself, he said he has had absolutely no dealings with anybody in government, and aside from Conservative MP Trudy Harrison, then Parliamentary Private Secretary to Boris Johnson, who he says refused to knock on the Prime Minister's door and ask for his permission to evacuate the animals. He also pointed out that no British troops were there to help him get his dogs and cats into Kabul airport and onto the flight, as Operation Pitting was over, and that the troops had left, and that he has never had any correspondence from Boris or Carrie. So, is this in fact...
Total rhubarb.
So who do you believe? Leaked correspondence which suggested that the Foreign Secretary at the time, Dominic Raab, and Number 10 had a hand in the decision. Dominic Dyer, a friend of Mr Farthing, who lobbied the Prime Minister's wife and said that he was in no doubt that she persuaded her husband to intervene, but to my knowledge has provided no evidence of this whatsoever. Or Pen Farthing himself, who'd said that he had no idea who sanctioned it, but he and the expat families who owned the animals were very grateful. Or do you believe Boris? What difference does it make to the price of fish as to whether Boris was involved or not? I mean, who cares? Here's the thing. We don't know what the implications would have been if Boris had admitted any involvement, which he hasn't admitted. But if he had, it would show that he has compassion. And why is that bad? He called the suggestion of his involvement
Total rhubarb.
But let me put this to you. If we paint the scenario that Boris was involved in any way, which to repeat, he has denied, as you've heard, it was for the greater good. How can you get at him for that? And in this scenario, if he had managed to get people out as well, would he be hailed as a liar or a hero?
Total rhubarb.
Right, so before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. This week, Game of Thrones star Peter Dinklage criticised Disney's remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, saying that the film has a backward story of 7 dwarfs living in a cave. Well, that is the story, yeah. But some actors with dwarfism have been critical of him, saying that they rely on the entertainment industry for work, and it is inclusive. I'll meet actor and bodybuilder Chun Tan for my difficult conversation at 5 o'clock. The Great British Debate this hour. Should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? A Nationality and Borders Bill was going through the committee stage in the House of Lords this week, and in its current form, if the British government wants to remove someone's citizenship, it will no longer need to tell them. Home Secretary Priti Patel promised that the bill would create a firm but fair asylum system to allow the UK to take full control of its borders. But I want to know, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without even letting them know about it? And I'll be joined by friend of the show and former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray, to get the latest from the royal household. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing this afternoon. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me @gbnews. Right, should we get started? Welcome again to my panel, comedian Leo Kearse and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Abi Amankona. Firstly, welcome, guys. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us, Albie. I'm about to call you Abby. But he's not Abby, he's Albie. Right. So I'm going to have to start with you, Albie. You're Conservatives Against Racism, so, you know, I don't know which side of the fence you sit on with this particular issue, but what do you think? Do you believe that Boris may have had a hand in it, or do you think that he didn't, or...?
I don't really mind, to be honest. I find it quite difficult to get outraged by this story, to be honest. My understanding is that Pen Farthing had a high-profile campaign to get his animals out of Afghanistan. He raised money through fundraising to charter a flight to Afghanistan to evacuate the animals, and also 67 people who are now starting their lives in the United Kingdom. So I find it just difficult to get enraged about this. Surely it's a good news story.
Well, that's what I thought, but people are sort of saying that, well, Boris, he may have lied about that, and if he lied about this... I mean, is this something that we should even, you know, be involved in a sense, as a huge news story that sort of precludes us from talking about other things?
I think so, but I think it's quite clear that there are a lot of people out to get Boris at the moment. Yes, he has made a lot of mistakes recently, but I think it's also important to note that Sir Philip Barton, the top civil servant in the Foreign Office, has actually apologised to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee for giving incorrect information linking the Prime Minister to this decision. So I just think it's a storm in a teapot.
What do you think, then? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know, the evil of this man seems to know no bounds. Last week, he had a birthday cake.
Oh, my God.
A birthday cake.
Well,
and this week, he's saving some dogs. I mean,
And people.
He's like a James Bond baddie, isn't he? I don't know, I think people are upset about this because, you know, there may be some suggestion that he's prioritised animals over humans. But as a country, don't we do that? I mean, animal charities get so much more money than charities that actually save human lives. So, you know, maybe he's just reflecting what the voters want. Also, I think, you know, in fairness to Boris, this isn't the worst thing that happened with our withdrawal from Afghanistan. And he perhaps thought there was more time to get other people out. I don't think people realised it was going to be such a cataclysmic rush and, you know, such a catastrophic deadline for getting people out.
Well, it's true what you say as well. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen that film, John Wick, and the guy goes in and he kills all these people, but then he doesn't kill the animals. Everyone goes, oh, thank goodness for that. Have you seen the film?
No, I've never seen the film.
It's a very good one, yeah. When you get a chance, watch it. It's brilliant.
Definitely will.
Brilliant.
And do we know the Taliban's position on animals? Would they have kept the animals as pets, or would they have...
I don't know, I might have eaten them. No, I've no idea. I have no
I'm glad you said that, not me.
Well, I don't think they'll be right. I don't think they'll be watching. Really, what happened to this weekend?
I went on Good Morning Britain.
Oh, yeah?
I thought I was having a reasonable debate. And it turns out, apparently, what I said can be misconstrued as the most evil and terrible racist thing that anybody could ever say. Basically, I defended, not so much defended Boris Johnson's joke about people in burqas looking like
No, we can't,
letterboxes. But I said, you know, it's a visual gag. It's not a hateful comment. He was in the article. He was actually defending the right of people to wear burqas.
Well, he was actually doing that. He was actually defending them. But yeah. So listen. So again, it does seem like a sort of concerted attack against Boris. Yeah. I am genuinely a little bit sick of hearing it. I'm sick of hearing Partygate and all those things. But it was because I listened to something that Pen Farthing was saying, and I just thought that when will this end? This whole sort of every single thing they're trying to find something that is wrong or negative. When actually this story, if we're to believe that he had any hand in it, which again he denies, he didn't have any hand in it. And even as you said, the person who's what's the guy's name?
Sir Philip Barton.
That's it. Sir Philip Barton has come out and said, well, actually, I apologise for the words I used. They may well have been misleading. So it is interesting that it does feel to me that mainstream and the media seem to pick up on this, and then they ran with it. Even Tom Tugendhat, with his comments, he was inaccurate with what he said. So it just seems nobody's picking up on these things at all.
But quickly in defence of Tom, I think at the time the facts weren't established. Sir Philip Barton hadn't come out and said that he'd misled anyone. And at the time that it was all happening, you know, emotions were very high. And when the news story first came out back when the evacuation was going on, I will be honest, I was annoyed at the way that it was being kind of presented to the public. But now that the facts are out in full, I'm no longer annoyed because it's clear to me that actually I don't think any wrongdoing took place.
But don't you think the media, though, I mean, in a sense, to reflecting a story in that way when it really wasn't as they did, should actually come out and apologise, seeing as they're, baying for blood every time Boris does something. Well, they are, aren't they? Every time somebody gets something. But they won't apologise. They've done it to me. I've had an issue where I was on a programme and they literally completely misquoted and added things in that I hadn't said. Yeah. And everyone was like, how could you do that? And everything. I'm like, if you play the clip, you haven't actually heard me use those words. Yeah. But they were able to do that. I did nothing about it. I couldn't really. There wasn't any point. Because if I said anything, everyone went, oh, you're just saying that now to protect yourself. And it was like, no, if you listen to the clip, I haven't said anything. Yeah. But still...
The media always misquote, misrepresent, to make a story, to create clickbait, to create a headline that people are going to want to click on. So, they'll throw accusations of racism, for example, into a headline. And, if the media had to apologise for every time they misrepresented or misquoted someone, they'd never stop apologising.
Well, there you go.
Any time to do any news.
Well, there you say it, because exactly the same way as Prime Minister and everybody else, if we're all being forced to apologise for things that we did wrong, then perhaps the media should start speaking up when they've actually misrepresented something and start apologising and let the public start to hear that what you've read and the way we've misled you 2 years later or 2 years ago, which is what they're getting Boris for, perhaps they should start apologising for their misrepresentation of the facts and of stories, and also people like Tom Tugendhat. As you said, though, of course, with respect, he didn't know all the facts. Well, he does now, so he should apologise as well. They should all, if they're going to force Boris and civil servants and everyone to apologise for misrepresented things or breaking rules, then they all need to be saying sorry.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, they agree with me. This is an absolute first. What's going on? What the guan? Listen, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews on TV and on digital radio. Still to come, it's time for the Great British Debate. In this hour, I'm asking, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? The Nationalities and Borders Bill was going through the committee stage in the House of Lords this week, and in its current form, if the British government wants to remove someone's citizenship, it will no longer need to tell them. I'll be joined by a solicitor who's been researching the bill. I also want to know what you think. Should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? Send me that email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You could also tweet me at GBNews, and there is a poll up asking that very question. Should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? Cast your vote now, but first, it's the weather.
So looking ahead then to this evening's weather, and the UK looking generally drier and brighter, with winds easing as Storm Malik thankfully passes. Let's look at the detail. Rain and cloud clearing throughout the southwest and southeast of England to leave a dry and fine evening. Temperatures dropping tonight though, leading to a frost for many. A fine evening across the southeast of England, skies clearing this evening to make way for a chilly night and allowing frost again to form in some places. Moving across to Wales now, and there will be the odd light shower there this evening. Those skies will clear, allowing temperatures to drop as well. And zooming into the Midlands, well, there will be some light showers around to the end of the day, but dry for most people there. Let's take you then across to the Pennines now, and that rather blustery day that it's been so far easing off into this evening, and the skies also across the Pennines clearing eventually, making way for a cold night again and a frost forming for many. Scattered showers affecting Scotland this evening, some turning wintry over high ground. A calmer night though, lighter winds. And then moving over to Northern Ireland. Some isolated showers across the area today. Tonight, winds easing and some clear spells, allowing temperatures to drop and frost once again. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at 8 o'clock on Fridays and again at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me. 8 on Fridays, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's fast approaching 22 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Now, it's time for our great British debate this hour, and I'm asking, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? The Nationality and Borders Bill was going through the committee stage in the House of Lords this week. In its current form, if the British government wants to remove someone's citizenship, it will no longer need to tell them. Now, the Home Secretary Priti Patel promised the bill would create a firm but fair asylum system to allow the UK to take full control of its borders. But I want to know, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without actually mentioning that they're doing so? Well, I'm joined by Bernard Owusu. He's a senior partner at BWF Solicitors. He's been looking into the bill and the impacts it might have. So firstly, Bernard, thank you so much for coming into the studio. It's great to meet you. So take us through as an explanation of the Nationality and Borders Bill and what it is actually hoping to achieve.
Okay. So the bill itself is a mixed bag of regulations which seeks to amend current laws and regulations. It's a bill that is seeking to tighten some of the loose ends of the asylum law and historical injustice with British nationality, especially for British overseas citizens, and also seeks to punish countries that do not cooperate with the UK when it comes to returning those people who failed asylum applications and people who do not have leave to remain here. Also seeks to tidy up the loose ends of what we call the traffic slaves who've been brought into the country by other people. There's a bit about legal aid, which tidies it up, and also something in relation to the appeals requirement for both the first-year tribunal and the Special Immigration Commission, and also brings in a penalty for wasting the tribunal's time in relation to immigration appeals.
So that means people can't keep appealing and appealing and appealing constantly like that?
It relates to conduct of the representative.
Okay.
So it's not only...
it's also the lawyer, could be... That's a good thing. Like, all the things that you've listed sound like quite good things. So what is the objection?
Well, two parts. The first objection that I can see is in relation to Clause 9, which is the Secretary of State failure to give notice when she wants to revoke someone's citizenship. Now, citizenship is a right. I know that the previous Secretary of State have said it's a privilege. Both the US Supreme Court and the UK Court of Appeal have stated that it's a right on which other rights are built. So you're born with it. And if it's something that you've acquired from birth, you can't just take it away without giving notification.
So they're saying that even if you were born in this country and maybe you go off on holiday, then you come back, you could find that at the airport you are no longer a citizen of this country. Is that?
And that is the problem.
Right.
The current law, the current law is that she ought to give notice. And notification really invites you to put in a representation why her thoughts or her arguments are wrong. My experience is that in some of the cases that we have dealt with, for example, at the notification stage, they've changed their mind and they've returned the citizenship. So it's quite important. And it also invites judicial oversight. Clearly, if you give unfettered powers to one person, and it's one person only, I'm aware that apparently there's a group of people who may advise her, but on a few occasions she hasn't taken the advice. And we are also aware that sometimes the Home Office makes mistakes. The most recent one is what we had with the Windrush scandal. So it's very important that she listens to what almost thousands, potentially millions of people are saying, that this law itself is not fair because it's an incremental erosion of centuries-old British justice, fairness, and equity. That's what she's taken away. It really doesn't make sense.
But she might argue that actually people have taken the proverbial out of this, and all the appeals of people who come here, and then they should have been. I mean, there was the guy who had that bomb, that makeshift bomb outside the hospital. He'd actually applied for citizenship. He applied to stay here as a refugee, and of course he was declined, and still here and appealing. And the whole system needs an overhaul, and it seems that what they're responding to is that. But the other thing that you mentioned is that if somebody, the whole premise of it is that they can literally make someone stateless, is what they're saying. I mean, this is the Shamima Begum issue.
Yes. Now, the law itself, the British Nationality Act, as in its current form, and because the UK signed a UN Charter on statelessness, it will not allow the country to make you stateless. However, there seems to be a burden on you to show why you cannot take citizenship of another country. That is a different argument. That doesn't form part of the current changes. The current changes is what we are arguing against. And the current changes is such that we know that the Court of Appeal, the last few days have said that notification is very, very important. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand why she doesn't want to give reasons for revocation, and for example, because of relationship with a foreign country. I mean, haven't come across any example of a relationship with a foreign country that will prevent the Secretary of State from giving you notice. It's not immigration, and we need to differentiate between immigration and nationality. Nationality is for British people, it's for British citizens. And it can be anybody. It can be somebody who has lived here for years, somebody whose great-great-great-grandparents have lived here for years, and they could take away the citizenship without really giving you notification.
So you said that they're different nationality and citizenship, right? So if they remove your citizenship, you're still British?
No.
So they seem quite the same to me. I'm trying to work out the difference in my head.
So what I said is there's a difference between citizenship and immigration.
All right.
Now, immigration is usually for people who've come into this country. Nationality is for people who either were born or acquired the nationality, although they came here, they can register or naturalize as British citizens. The argument is that she, in certain circumstances, and it seems to be a blanket exemption, and they give 5 circumstances. One is in the interest of state security. One is in the interest of national security. The other one is relationship with a foreign country.
Right.
The other one is if she hasn't got information to give you notice. And the last one is that
it's a bit weak, isn't it?
It's practically impossible to serve you. What a House of Commons and the House of Lords Joint Committee on Human Rights have said, and they've reviewed a lot of laws and listened to a lot of experts, is that first of all, we don't think this is necessary. because you've even got wide discretion as it stands. And there's never been any issue with taking citizenship from anyone. I mean, this started with Abu Hamza during Labour government, and that's why these deprivation laws came in. We've had them since 1914, but it's never been used really. Right. I mean, in 2017 alone, we had about 145 people lose their citizenship. The reason to lose citizenship is there. I'm not arguing with that. What I'm arguing with is a process of notification, which seems to erode the centuries-old British concept of justice, fairness, and equity.
I understand. So it's not actually the taking away, it's the lack of notification.
Absolutely.
That's the issue.
Absolutely.
But then people seem to be taking advantage of that. Well, listen, we'll carry on discussing that as well. That's, of course, Bernard Owusu. He's a senior partner at BWF Solicitors. So stay with us. Now, in a statement, the Minister for Justice and Tackling Illegal Immigration, Tom Pursglove, said the Nationality and Borders Bill will deliver the government's new plan for immigration, the most comprehensive reform in decades to fix the broken asylum system. Removing British citizenship has been possible for over a century. It is used against those who have acquired citizenship by fraud and against the most dangerous people, such as terrorists, extremists, and serious organised criminals. Clause 9 does not change these reasons and is simply about the process of notification for removal of citizenship. So today I'm asking, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? Let's have a quick look at what you've already been saying. Now, Jamie says that the government should make all the reasonable attempts to inform people that their citizenship is being revoked. Ultimately, someone should be able to appeal that decision in the court. Saf says this is definitely a good idea, but only for criminals and especially terrorists. Anthony says stripping citizenship is retrograde and not the actions any country should take. All British citizens should be returned and face justice. Well, stay with us, keep getting involved with that. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews. If you just joined me, welcome on board. We're on TV and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue the Great British debate. I'm asking, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? Bernard Owusu, a senior partner at BWF Solicitors, will stay with us, and you'll hear the thoughts of my panel comedian Leo Kurtz and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albi Aman Koma. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Hello, it's 4:32. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister will travel to Eastern Europe next week as part of efforts to prevent a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Downing Street say Boris Johnson is determined to accelerate diplomatic efforts and will also speak to President Putin over the phone. He's considering a range of options to discourage Russian military aggression and bolster NATO defences. A 60-year-old woman has been killed by a falling tree in Aberdeen as Storm Malik hit with winds of up to 100 miles per hour. Northern power grids say power supplies and mobile phone coverage has been affected in northern parts of the UK. Yellow weather warnings for wind remain in place across much of the country. A former Attorney General has criticised the Met Police over its handling of the Downing Street party allegations. Lord Morris says he's dismayed with Scotland Yard after Sue Gray was asked to ensure her report made minimal reference to number 10 events they are currently looking into. It's led to claims that police were delaying its publication. A major overhaul of the highway code has come into force today. However, there are concerns that millions of drivers are unaware of the changes. New guidance means traffic will have to give way when pedestrians cross at a junction. The changes aim to boost protection for cyclists and pedestrians. Older people might have to go without food or heat this winter, according to research by the charity Age UK. Nearly a quarter of people over 65 say they'll be forced to choose between heating their home or buying food if bills increase substantially. And the governor of a province in eastern Thailand has declared a state of emergency after an oil spill from an underwater pipeline. Around 50,000 litres of oil has been leaked into the ocean, spreading to cover an 18-square-mile area. Ships and aircraft are working to contain the spill with barriers while spraying chemical dispersants. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. We'll get straight back to Nana after the break.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
37 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. If you've just tuned in, I'm Nana Akua. Welcome on board. Now it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? The Nationality and Borders Bill was going through the committee stage in the House of Lords this week. And in its current form, if the British government wants to remove someone's citizenship, it will no longer need to tell them. The Home Secretary Priti Patel promised the bill would create a firm but fair asylum system to allow the UK to take full control of its borders. But I want to know, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? Really? So I'm joined by Bernard Owusu as well. He's a senior partner at BWF Solicitors. And also the panel, Leo Kers and also Albie Ammon-Komena. So Albie, you've been listening. What do you think about this? I mean, I thought that Bernard made a very clear case in explaining it and actually breaking down the elements in it that people are sort of slightly objecting to. What's your view?
Absolutely. I mean, I listened very carefully to what Bernard had to say, but I think I have a slightly different opinion, maybe more in line with the government's opinion. And it's my understanding that the main purpose of Clause 9 and removing citizenship without notice is in cases where it's almost impossible to get in touch with the person whose citizenship is being removed. And of course, it doesn't apply to people who only have British citizenship or who don't have a claim to citizenship abroad. It applies to people who have dual citizenship or who could have a claim to citizenship in another country. So, for example, I have a claim to Ghanaian citizenship, for example. I don't have the citizenship, but I've got a claim to it because that's where my grandfather was born. So I don't necessarily see a problem if citizenship is stripped without notice, if the government has made all reasonable attempts to get in touch with that person, to give them notice, and it's my understanding that that is why Clause 9 is being implemented to reflect the changing threats of national security that we see.
That sounds like something that's quite loose and vague, though, that could, perhaps you're saying that, but somebody could say, yeah, what are the stages of those attempts that need to be made? Because it's very loose, isn't it? So we've made every attempt we can. Well, what was that? Was that calling you up, going to your house? Was that maybe texting you a few times? Oh, that's the best I can do. I can't get hold of him. Right, we'll just get him out of this country. It does sound a bit vague. I mean, Bernard, just for some clarification, is that correct?
Yeah, and this is a problem we have. It's a misinformation. What you've just said is totally wrong. It's not those who have dual nationality or could have dual nationality. It's for everyone. And it's not after they've made extensive search and failed. In fact, that is a recommendation of the Joint Committee of both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, that we don't want you to put this clause there. However, if you want to do it, then you need to add another line which says that after you've made extensive search for the person that you failed. Listen, in 2003, the Supreme Court said in certain instances, the Secretary of State can serve you notice on a file. That is after they've made extensive search and they can't find you. And it's not only for terrorists. There are two broad categories of citizens who can lose their rights. I'll call them the traditional citizens and those who've come here and naturalized. The traditional citizens obviously can lose their rights if whatever they've done is not conducive to public good. And for those who've naturalized or registered, if it's not in the public interest with what they've done. But when you go to all the commentaries and explanatory statements, they go on to say that even people whose offenses have caused harm to the state, it's a problem, isn't it? Because when you come to the reasons why they don't want to give notice, it's because, one, relationship with an external country. What sort of relationship prevents you from telling your citizen that, you know what, we've got information that may compel us to take your citizenship? What do you say to that? I mean, I can't see any. I haven't.
So does that mean, so at the airport, if somebody says, oh, well, actually Nana did this and she really wound me up and we think she's detrimental to this country, they could literally just send me to Ghana.
And that's
even
why...
though I've been there twice, didn't really like it. They didn't have ketchup at the time. They didn't have tomato ketchup. I was so angry. and then the bread, there were ants everywhere. I thought, where is this place? That's what I thought when I was there.
Yes.
But I was only 11, though, to be fair. I was only 11 at the time.
Yeah. Well, but listen, it's, as I've said, it's not only for people who have dual nationality or potentially have dual nationality. It's for everyone. So every British citizen can suffer this fate. And the problem is that I'm not worried about people who are genuinely a threat to this country. Clearly, of course, if they've committed crimes, terrorism is obviously a crime, then they ought to be dealt with. My argument is not against deprivation or revocation. My argument is the process of serving notice. And if that is not served properly, and the courts have said, I mean, we've got a high court only a few months ago.
If it's not done properly, then you can say, well, you haven't served it properly.
Well, they've said it's
like
illegal.
anything, isn't it?
It's unconstitutional. On 3 occasions in the last 3 months. That, no, you can't do that. It's not something that we do as a country.
Well, Leo, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think on one hand, the asylum and immigration system is broken. We've got people whose appeals go on for sometimes over a decade. So the system needs to be fixed. You know, it's created a sort of a lawyer class of people who, at the taxpayers' expense, can keep doing these appeals, and it's not good for the people seeking asylum, and it's not good for the country either. But this revocation of citizenship seems to be shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted. You know, we need to make sure that when people come to this country, they share our values of tolerance, equality, and liberty. And if people are coming in who don't share those values, we need to, you know, make sure they're not coming in. They're not going to be extremists or radicalising people. But we also need to make sure our there's no homegrown radicalisation of people. If people are being radicalised in the UK, then you know. Then who are you talking to?
Myself. I always talk to myself because I'm talking to myself. I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself because I'm way more interesting than you.
Maybe I'll talk to Albie instead.
Can we send?
I'm going to tell Albie what I think.
Well, maybe they'll send you back to Scotland.
That's the thing. I mean, this bill doesn't make it clear. It doesn't make it clear, you know, understand terrorists and, you know, extremists, people who are going to cause mass harm. You know, we've seen horrific suicide bombings and things like that. There's the guy who blew himself up in a taxi, you know, on his way to commit a terrible atrocity just a few weeks ago. So obviously, you know, these people need to be dealt with. But what if it's just somebody who the state suddenly disapprove of?
Well, what about? Well, sorry, go on.
And also with the thing about not telling people that their citizenship's been revoked.
Just put you in a black cab and then you suddenly find yourself at the airport and on your way back to Scotland.
That's the thing. You've got to book your flights. You've already spent money on the flights flights to come back from Tenerife and you can't get in the country. That's, you need to tell people before they book their flights. I understand, it might be hard to find people, but I think they need to be clearer. It needs to be specified. Legislation always needs to be very specific.
Well, I mean, as Bernard said, they can actually make mistakes as well, which they do a lot of the time, so that's not good either. Well, if we're looking at removing citizenship, one of the most recent well-known cases is that, of course, of Shamima Begum. She's a British-born woman who left the UK at 15 to join the Islamic State group. She had a citizenship revoked in 2019. And in a GBNews exclusive, journalist Andrew Drury sat down with the ex-ISIS bride and her friend Hoda late last year. And she told them that she thinks that she could help with UK with their fight against terror.
Message for me to send back to people at home, what would it be?
I don't have any messages. I'm tired of giving messages and not being believed.
What, even to your own family?
Yeah. If I give a message to my family, I want it to be face to face, not over the media.
Just as a mum, she must be wanting to know if you're safe or anything. Because my daughter would be, I'd kind of mainly want to be
I guess she
safe.
just watches the media and hopes that a day never comes where she hears that I die.
I know a lot about you because that's kind of a bit of a job of ours to do that. And you were a really good kid at school.
Yeah.
You were, a really nice kid.
Yeah.
Really quite educated, doing quite well.
Yeah.
Never got in any trouble.
Yeah.
Just quiet.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you get to the age of 13, 14, 15. They said that you were walking wearing ISIS badges at school.
I was not.
These stories are going to happen when you're not there to defend yourself.
I know.
So if the government come and spoke to you, would you be willing to tell them how it happened?
Of course, yeah. I actually think it's important that they know so that they can prevent it in the future for other people.
Because you said Boris doesn't know. You obviously know Boris is there. What do you mean by that? Do you think the British government?
No, I just mean the fight against terrorism is not a one-man job. It's multiple people with multiple skills that.
And do you believe that you have the tools?
I do. Yeah.
To stop it.
Well, I mean, isn't that just an example of perhaps why this is a good thing? Bernard, I mean, should she get her citizenship revoked? I mean, I think she should.
Well, and this is the problem we have. I mean, when we talk about people who are decent-minded British citizens going about their everyday work and being patriotic citizens, then we cite Shamima Begum as an example of who this law will apply to. It's not true. Shamima's situation is quite different, and I think it's a poor example of us trying to justify a particular clause which will affect people like I and maybe my family and potentially millions of people. What we're saying is that if somebody is a criminal, if somebody is a terrorist, there are provisions in the law as we speak, and that is why she's where she is.
Well, she's where she is, but she's still trying to make appeals to get back here and all that.
But she's lost all her appeals. But she's lost all her appeals. Yeah. The latest one that, obviously we had one yesterday or 2 days ago, where there was a child who was trafficked, and she's using the trafficking part as a reason why she was involved in terrorism. That is not what we are talking about. What we're talking about is that decent-minded British citizens who may lose their British citizenship because of human mistake, but yet will not be told that they've lost their British citizenship. So bringing in Shamima Begum, muddies the water. And if somebody is not very clear with the information out there, they might think, well, this is against terrorists. Of course, it's not against terror. It's for everyone. It's not a category of citizens who this will apply to. This is a wide discretion, unfettered power, which is being given to the Secretary of State against almost all of us.
Almost all of us, yeah. Well, actually, all of us, because you're Scottish. You're from Ghana. In fact, we're all from Ghana.
We are.
Well, I'm a Geordie. I was born in Newcastle, by the way. But of course, my family are from Ghana, so that is somewhere that I could end up being sent back if I do anything bad. I promise to behave. Right. So this show is actually nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome one of our great British voices. This is the opportunity for you to be on the show and tell us what you think about the topics that we're discussing. Desmond, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you think that the government should be able to remove citizenship without notice?
In 2007, they brought out the Immigration Act, and that led to the Windrush scandal. And clearly, a lot of people lost their status in this country. And with this act, what's going to be the next scandal? They haven't got that right. And I don't believe they've got this right either. Clearly, tarring everyone with the same brush is not the way forward, in all honesty. And even for me, my parents are from Jamaica, so I was born here. Are they able to revoke my citizenship? My argument is about due process. And clearly, being able to remove someone's citizenship without actually notifying them is very, very dangerous. And the only thing is that I've got to ask with this government and successive government, what next? And who does this legislation apply to more than anyone else? Yet again, the minority community. So is it a case of, yet again, discrimination to get rid of the minority community out of the UK? That's how I look at it. They're tarring us with the same brush. Due process isn't taking place, and the Windrush scandal isn't even sorted out yet. So, you know, why bring in more aggressive immigration regulations when clearly, I mean, people have died as a result of the 2007 Immigration Act?
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you, Desmond. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Desmond Jaddo. He's a bishop and doctor. GB Voices, you can be one as well. You can email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk. So today, I'm asking, should the government be able to remove someone's citizenship without telling them? And lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Janet said, yes, the government is correct. It's about time we stop having people abuse our great country. Lucy says, this is a bit worrying. What if they do it when you're on holiday and you can't get back? It needs more justification. Well, if you can go back to the place that you've come back from holiday, I mean, it could be the Maldives or Greece or somewhere, actually it might be better off there, to be honest. John says, no, this really isn't right. There needs to be due process. Steve says, yes, if the individual has gone to ground on the run, absconded, moved or resident overseas, do you wait until you can speak to them, phone them or write them a letter to an unknown address? If they aren't right, get rid. There's also a poll up right now on Twitter asking you that very question, and currently 58% of you say yes, the government should be able to strip someone's citizenship without telling them. We'll keep these thoughts coming. In a statement, the Minister for Justice and Tackling Illegal Immigration, Tom Pursglove, said the Nationality and Borders Bill will deliver the government's new plan for immigration, the most comprehensive reform in decades, to fix the broken asylum system. Removing British citizenship has been possible for over a century. It is used against those who have acquired citizenship by fraud and against the most dangerous people, such as terrorists, extremists and serious organised criminals. Clause 9 does not change these reasons and is simply about the process of notification for the removal of citizenship. Interesting. Right, so if you just joined me, welcome on board. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. My panellists joining me are Leo Kearse and also Albi Amankona. After the break, we'll get the latest from our royal household and former royal correspondent of The Sun, Charles Ray. I want to thank Bernard, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Right, we'll be speaking to Charles Ray. We'll be back in a moment.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's just coming up to 5 minutes to 5. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now let's get the latest from the royal household, because it's been a very busy week once again. On the agenda, Prince Andrew's lawyers announced that this week he was ready to face a jury trial in New York over claims brought by Virginia Giuffre, allegations he strongly denies. So let's speak to the former royal correspondent at The Sun and friend of the show, Charles Ray. Charles, gosh, what busy... I feel sorry for the Queen. There's so much going on. So can you sort of surmise what's the latest with Andrew?
Well, it's been another strange week in the wacky world of Prince Andrew, to be perfectly honest. I mean, we now have, he has officially denied these allegations in an 11-page document, and his lawyers have said he demands a jury trial. Well, he can demand all he likes. He was going to get a jury trial in any case. There's going to be a jury of 12 men and women who will be called to hear the civil action. But in that document, he made certain assertions, one being that Ghislaine Maxwell, who's just been convicted of being a sex trafficker, is not a close friend. Now, the word close is the one he is focusing on. And bizarrely, he has now seems to want to get hold of the shamed actor Kevin Spacey in his defence to prove that Ghislaine Maxwell's not a close pal. Now, if you remember, there was a very famous photograph of Ghislaine Maxwell and Kevin Spacey sitting on the throne of the Queen and Prince Philip. And this was after Spacey had been invited to the palace by Andrew. Now, he says he invited Spacey, but did not invite Maxwell. She came with Spacey. And it's that, he says, will prove that they're not close friends. But of course, there's so much documentary evidence around to show how friendly they are. And I can't understand why he's focusing on this. Surely he should be focusing on the substance of this case, which is the accusations of abuse against a 17-year-old girl.
Well, of course, Virginia Roberts said that she's only going to accept a settlement from Prince Andrew if it holds him to account. I mean, that's what her lawyer says in a sort of sign of...
But that goes without saying, Nana. I mean, I cannot believe that she would accept a financial settlement unless there was a rider in that agreement that he admitted his guilt, if you like. I mean, which he strenuously denies, of course. So I mean, whatever she was to accept, she will want some form of words that says, yes, I did you wrong, I'm sorry.
So she's really, the money won't be something, it won't be enough, will it? She's insisting on an actual trial, and that's what will appear to be happening.
Well, I think that is a bit of, she's bound to say that because we're at the sort of, sparring stage of this legal process. But I'm sure if the money was right and the agreement was right, then she would accept. And let's not forget that 97% of all civil cases in the States are settled out of court. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, because I did hear that if she doesn't accept the settlement and then it goes to trial and goes to court and then she's given some money but it doesn't cover the cost, then she would actually then have to pay for the difference in costs. So it's not even wise for her to take it to court. But if she's insisting that he has to actually agree to some of the allegations or something like that, and
yes,
then that's going to go to court and she could lose out financially. Isn't that the case?
But that is always the problem when you're facing a trial, civil trial, criminal trial, or whatever. You've got 12 people who are going to rule, and they will rule on the evidence that's presented. So, yes, she thinks she's got a good case. Andrew says he's got a good case. That jury will have to sort it all out. And if they find for her, he is going to have to pay out an awful lot of money. If they find for him, then she is in a lot of trouble herself.
Interesting stuff, and of course Prince Andrew strongly denies all of that. But I don't know if I can call him Prince anymore. Anyway, Charles,
he's still a prince.
he's still a prince, is he? We can still say that. All right, well, Charles, thank you so much for joining us. That's Charles Ray. He's a former royal correspondent for The Sun. You're watching me, Nana Akua, on GB News. More to come in the next hour. So it's fast approaching 5 o'clock. This is GB News. Hello and welcome. I'm Nana Akua. You're either watching on TV or listening on digital radio. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is comedian Leo Kearse and also co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albi Amankoma. Now, before we get stuck into the debate, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister will travel to Eastern Europe next week as part of efforts to prevent a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine. Downing Street say Boris Johnson is determined to accelerate diplomatic efforts and will also speak to President Putin on the phone. He'll consider a range of options to discourage Russian aggression, including fresh military deployments and bolstering NATO defences. Speaking to GB News, former Defence Secretary Ian Duncan-Smith urged the European Union to stand up to Russia.
If they invade Ukraine, I think it is a threat to the way we live our lives. It is a threat to NATO. This is a democracy. It's a country that has the right to free choice. We've been giving them arms. I wish the rest of the European Union now would actually back up what the UK and America are doing.
A 60-year-old woman has been killed by a falling tree in Aberdeen as Storm Malik brought winds of up to 100 miles per hour. Northern power grids say power supplies and mobile phone coverage has been affected in northern parts of the UK. A shopping centre in Sunderland was also evacuated after damage was caused to its glass roof. Yellow weather warnings for wind remain in place across much of the UK. A former Attorney General has criticised the Met Police over its handling of the Downing Street party allegations. Lord Morris says he's dismayed with Scotland Yard after Sue Gray was asked by the force to make sure her report made minimal reference to the No. 10 events they're looking into. It's led to claims that police were delaying its publication. Former advisor to Theresa May, Joey Jones, thinks the police should reflect now on their own conduct.
Probably the Met that have more questions to ask themselves at the moment as to how they've allowed themselves to get into a situation where there's so much cynicism, so much anger, that could have been avoided quite easily just by being a bit more transparent and a bit more upfront about the reasons behind their decision-making.
A major overhaul of the highway code has come into force today, and there are concerns that millions of drivers are simply unaware of the changes. New guidance means traffic will have to give way when pedestrians cross at a junction. Cyclists should also prioritise riding in the centre of lanes on quieter roads to make themselves more visible. The changes aim to boost protection for cyclists and pedestrians. Edmund King, president of the AA, spoke to GB News earlier.
141 cyclists were killed on the roads last year, more than 4,000 injured. Some 5 people every day actually die on the road. So it's trying to say, look, the roads are there, they're there to be shared.
Police have arrested a man on suspicion of racially abusing former England footballer Ashley Cole. The incident reportedly occurred when Swindon Town played Manchester City earlier this month during an FA Cup third-round tie. Cole, who played for Arsenal and Chelsea, was part of the broadcast pundit team. Wiltshire Police have confirmed a 24-year-old remains in custody. Older people may have to go without food or heat this winter as energy bills continue to rise. The charity Age UK claim nearly a quarter of people over 65 say they'll be forced to choose between heating their home or buying food if bills increase substantially. Meanwhile, more than half think they'll have to heat their homes less because of inflation and the soaring cost of living. The governor of a province in eastern Thailand has declared a state of emergency after an oil spill from an underwater pipeline. Around 50,000 litres of oil has been leaked into the ocean, spreading to cover an 18-square-mile area. Ships and aircraft are working to contain the spill with barriers while spraying chemical dispersants. And the Canadian singer Joni Mitchell has asked streaming site Spotify to remove her music over COVID misinformation concerns. The Grammy Award winner says the site allows irresponsible people to spread lies that were costing people their lives. Earlier this week, Neil Young removed his catalogue from Spotify, reportedly due to its hosting of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which has been known to air the views of vaccine skeptics. Well, this is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now, let's get back to Nana Akua.
It's fast approaching 5 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on your digital radio. On the way this hour, this week, Game of Thrones star Peter Dinklage criticised Disney's remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, saying that the film has a backwards story of 7 dwarfs living in a cave, which is actually the story. I mean, I don't know what the problem is there, but some actors with dwarfism have been critical of him, saying that they rely on the entertainment industry for work and it is inclusive. I'll meet actor and bodybuilder Chun Tan for my difficult conversation in a few moments' time. The Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the police get involved in Partygate? Sue Gray is expected to hand her report to Downing Street shortly. Crikey when she does. Although no exact date has been given, but police have asked for minimal reference to be made to events that they are looking into in order to avoid any prejudice to their investigation. So I'm asking, should the police have got involved in Partygate at all? And some people with long COVID may have hidden damage to their lungs. A small pilot study picked up lung abnormalities not identified by routine scans. I'll be speaking to the study's co-chief investigator, Professor Fergus Gleeson. Tell me your thoughts on what we're discussing today. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Let's start, though, with this. The Game of Thrones actor Peter Dinklage has attracted both praise and criticism after hitting out against Disney's new production of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He said that the production was backwards and seemingly at odds with the company's progressive stance on racial equality. Some of the actors with dwarfism have been critical of him, though. They're worried that they could be out of work if the entertainment industry stops casting actors with dwarfism for fear of stereotyping. So I'm joined in the studio by Chun Tan, who is an actor with dwarfism and a bodybuilder. He's actually performed on stage in Snow White. Chun, thank you so much, first of all, for joining us.
No, thank you for having me here.
Now, so start by telling me a little bit about you and your career. So, you know, your family, where are they from? Give me a little bit of a backstory.
Yeah, so my family are from Malaysia. I was born in Malaysia, but I moved here when I was 1 year old, and we grew up in Bognor Regis. And
oh, it sounded so good. You said Malaysia, then to Bognor Regis. Then we moved to Bognor Regis. Nice. Yeah, that's all right, isn't it, Bognor, I think, isn't it?
It's all right. You've got the beach, you've got Butlins.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's something. And in your, as your life, of course, I mean, with dwarfism, what was it like growing up?
So with dwarfism, I was the centre of attention and I was quite vulnerable to bullying and I had low self-confidence. I did have depression at one point, which I struggled with sort of mental health issues because of my height.
Yeah, that must have been very difficult for you as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I shouldn't ask how old you are, but how old are you?
27.
27. Look at you, looking good. I'm double your age, though.
Oh, yeah.
Almost not quite double. I mean, that would make me 54. I'm not. I'm 50. But you know, so growing up, it was challenging for you.
Yeah.
And in your mind, what was it that you wanted to do?
For me, I did want to do acting. That was always my dream, to do acting, to be on stage, to have a career where I felt I could be myself. And I'm lucky enough to have that right now, doing entertainment work and acting and also boxing.
And in terms of relationships and partners and things like that, how has that been for you?
In terms of, I'd say, confidence, it was quite hard because people wouldn't maybe take me seriously at first. But the more I grew in my confidence, it got easier and easier, and now I'm in a long-term relationship
That's
with
lovely.
my girlfriend.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And is she with dwarfism as well, or?
No, she's a lot taller than me, yeah.
It's fair enough, isn't it? You know, a lot of men like one who's a lot taller than them. Well, nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to ask now then, so your bodybuilding, did that come because of sort of the bullying side of things and you wanted to really sort of get stronger in yourself, externally, in confidence?
Yeah, definitely. I went to college and I had mentors and teachers that taught me about fitness and the importance of it and how it can affect your mindset.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just for me just changing my body, but it just made me feel good in my mindset because it was something that I could control. I couldn't control my height, but I could control the way I looked. I controlled my health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you look great.
Thank you.
And you got into acting. This is something that you'd been doing for quite some time.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that journey and your first film.
Yeah, so I initially started with bodybuilding and I did my first bodybuilding show in Newcastle. And that was amazing. I felt very included and a lot of people felt inspired by it.
Mm.
After that, I did 12 more competitions and I had my first TV experience on Judge Rinder and then on Ninja Warrior UK.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Isn't that is that like a competing game where you do, is that the one where you climb on things and...
Yeah.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's a massive obstacle course.
I know,
I was the shortest person to do it. I did have to give myself a mild concussion, but yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Mm. How far did you get? Was it what got you in the end on there?
It was the swing, so I was having to swing onto the ropes, and I missed it. Yeah.
That's pretty tough, isn't it? But sounds great. Yeah, I wouldn't get further. I wouldn't get any further than you.
We can go in there sometime.
Although the thing is, I don't like to get my hair wet, and I don't want my wig to fall off. So whatever I do, I wouldn't land in the water.
Oh yeah.
What do you make of then, Peter Dinklage and his comments?
So I think Peter Dinklage's comments are quite hypocritical because he has had derogatory comments made towards him on Game of Thrones, and I imagine they cast him because of his height.
Mm.
I think it's going to have a big knock-on effect. It could do if people start getting scared to employ dwarfs because it is a role for people with dwarfism, for shorter people, and I really don't want people to be scared to employ them as long as they're being respectful and they're being inclusive.
Because it's actually inclusive to use people who are the thing that you're talking about. So if Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I don't think it's offensive, me personally.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful story of family, really, and belonging. If you actually look at the meaning of what is behind the actual thing, it's about belonging. And, you know, how she goes and she makes family with these people who she would never normally have spoken to. And, I mean, you're in it. There's you in there. And for those listening on radio, he's wearing a very nice yellow sort of jacket type thing. He's looking good. White trousers.
Yeah.
There's also another picture of him there. Is that Frodo?
That is a gremlin for the BT advert I did.
Oh, yeah. So talk to me about the BT ad.
So the BT advert, they wanted to cast all these mystical creatures. So they had someone who was really tall, like a really tall girl who was like 6'2". They had me and they had a wizard. So they had me as a gremlin because I was like this little gremlin that was quite muscular. And yeah, they just wanted something unique. And I felt really included in that. And they were specifically looking for someone small. I didn't feel derogatory. Like, I didn't feel they were being offensive towards me.
Well, Peter Dinklage, I mean, he might be saying that because he wants to get all the jobs. Yeah. By the sounds of it.
That was in my head, yeah. He's trying to take out all the competition. Yeah.
I mean, it is a bit rich of him to say those things, especially when it's not... I mean, as long as somebody, as you said, is being respectful, then I don't see the issue with it at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and with these things, there are roles... And so you might as well... I mean, because otherwise, if you're going to cast Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs...
Yeah.
How are you going to create that with people who are not with dwarfism? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
And actually, that would probably be seen as a very negative thing, that you've, instead of bringing on people who could actually play the role specifically for that, actually getting people who aren't with dwarfism to pretend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done pantomimes twice over the Christmas period, and it's been a magical experience. The families love it, the children love it. I don't see anything wrong with it. They try to utilise our unique skills. So if someone can dance, I do my bodybuilding stuff, and yeah.
Well, that's how it should be. So what's next then? What are you up to next?
So for me next, I'm doing a boxing competition. I can't say too much about it, but that's coming up later in the year. And if Peter Dinklage, if he wants to settle this debate in the ring, I'm more than happy to.
He's probably running away right now. But well, maybe he did it for the publicity. I don't really understand why he would say those things because it seems a bit silly, really. Do you think in your head that a lot of this, you know, this sort of PC stuff is actually quite counterproductive?
Yeah, I do believe a lot of it is counterproductive. Yeah. Because there's a point where it's like it gets too much. I mean, people get employed for their uniqueness, and I believe as long as they're being respectful, that's absolutely fine. If you don't want to do it, then you don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to watch it. Peter, don't stop other people from getting jobs. And it's just not on, is it? He's talking in a way that, you don't want to get that storm where people are worried to create a fence, right? And that's not a good thing. Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm going to thank you so much for coming in and joining me.
Thank you very much.
I wish you all the best with all your endeavours. Very, very inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's Chun Tan. He's an actor with dwarfism and he's a bodybuilder as well. Well, coming up, it's the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should the police have got involved in Partygate? Sue Gray is expected to hand her report to Downing Street shortly, although no exact date has been given. But police have asked for minimal reference to be made to events that they're looking at in order to avoid any prejudice to their investigation. So the question is, should the police have got involved in Partygate? First, let's get some weather.
So looking ahead then to this evening's weather, and the UK looking generally drier and brighter with winds easing as Storm Malik thankfully passes. Let's look at the detail. Rain and cloud clearing throughout the southwest and southeast of England to leave a dry and fine evening. Temperatures dropping tonight though, leading to a frost for many. A fine evening across the southeast of England. Skies clearing this evening to make way for a chilly night and allowing frost again to form in some places. Moving across to Wales now, and there will be the odd light shower there this evening. Those skies will clear, allowing temperatures to drop as well. And zooming into the Midlands, well, there will be some light showers around to the end of the day, but dry for most people there. Let's take you then across to the Pennines now, and that rather blustery day that it's been so far easing off into this evening, and the skies also across the Pennines clearing eventually, making way for a cold night again and a frost forming for many. Scattered showers affecting Scotland this evening, some turning wintry over high ground. A calmer night though, lighter winds. And then moving over to Northern Ireland. Some isolated showers across the area today. Tonight, winds easing and some clear spells, allowing temperatures to drop and frost once again. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
coming up to 19 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, if you've just tuned in, welcome on board. It's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should the police have got involved in Partygate? Sue Gray said to be frustrated about the Metropolitan Police asking her to make minimal reference to the events it is investigating in relation to the alleged Downing Street parties. She's expected to publish her report soon, but no date has been given. So have the Metropolitan Police done the Prime Minister a favour? And should the organisation have gotten involved in Partygate in the first instance? So I'm joined now by political commentator and lawyer Helen Dale. Helen, thank you so much for joining me. Now, Helen, firstly, why do you think that the Metropolitan Police decided to investigate these alleged Downing Street parties after previously saying that they actually wouldn't?
My suspicion, and I can't prove this is just me guessing based on police investigations I've seen that have then bundled up the evidence and brought it to the Crown or to the DPP in Australia. I think, and this was why they originally responded with denials and saying we're not going to bother to investigate, or we're not going to go particularly far with this, or, you know, it's over, it's done and dusted. I think originally they did that because they thought, well, we're coming out of COVID now, COVID is over. We also blotted our copybook pretty badly, both the Met as a force in under-policing the Black Lives Matter protests and over-policing the Sarah Everard and anti-lockdown protesters. There were huge, obvious rule of law failings there. And then there were forces all around the country that had blotted their copybook with COVID regulations, and you had drones being sent up to the Dales after ramblers and really silly nonsense like that. And so I think that initially that was the reason for not taking it further. What has become clear now is that this appears to be not just a few individuals in Downing Street, maybe a few politicians. It's captured the upper reaches of the civil service. There's also footage of Keir Starmer allegedly breaking the rules with another MP, and here he is necking beers. And that is suggests, and the expression I've used on other outlets is, it suggests there's a degree of culture of impunity amongst the great and the good. Those who govern us and make the rules, where the breach is the most serious, those who enforce the rules, which is part of your, in a sense, the civil service is an arm of the executive, and then, of course, the opposition, which is supposed to scrutinise the rules. So I think that is why they have done this. I can't prove that, but my suspicion is this has made people very, very angry. It's managed to anger both sides of the COVID debate, in the sense that the people who are very pro-lockdown feel like they've been played for suckers, and the people who are very anti-lockdown are saying, well, you didn't think it was scary at all. Look at you, you're all still just busily doing your thing, and all the rest of us are locked in our houses.
Well, that sort of works on the presumption that everyone else followed the rules, and most people broke the rules at some point in any case.
Yes, that's my suspicion as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of people are throwing a lot of stones out there and actually not looking at their own houses, because even Keir Starmer coming out with something, and then he's been seen in a constituency office drinking and ordering food in.
I know.
I mean, that could be a party, couldn't it? If somebody commandeering you with some cake is a party, then that could be a party. There's so many. But why, I mean, in this instance, right, so, OK, if they're caught that they did flout the rules in some way or broke the rules, isn't the punishment simply a fine in any case? I mean, nobody's going to go to prison for this.
It's what's known as a fixed penalty notice, which isn't even a fine. A lot of people don't realise there's a difference between a fixed penalty notice and a fine. A fixed penalty notice is basically you pay it to make it go away. If, however, you challenge it and you go to court, it will typically be converted into a fine. And what tends to happen, and what has happened a number of times with these very large £10,000 COVID fines, is that the individual can't afford to pay them and so has challenged them. They've gone to court and it's been turned into a fine, often a very small sum of money, only £250 or something like that. But the thing is, you make the money problem go away, but then, of course, it's entered onto your permanent record, because a fine is a punishment for breaking the law, whereas a fixed penalty notice is kind of making you put your hand in your pocket for being a bit dodgy. It's really legally not a good thing to have, but governments of all stripes have been doing it all around the world recently.
Well, as you say, governments around the world have been doing this sort of thing, but then obviously putting these fixed penalties and fines in place. But if we look at the police force, so in the UK, 6% of crimes are solved, which is dismal because 6 years previous, when they started this whole thing, it was 15.5% of crimes being solved. So, looking at it, don't you think that the police time would be better spent investigating serious crimes rather than wasting time
Undoubtedly,
on
undoubtedly. This is part of a wider culture in the police of going after easy targets. And I can kind of see the forces operating on the Met, which is what I was explaining earlier. But stepping outside of those forces that are operating on the Met, there is this enormous problem in this country of poor quality, what criminologists call clear-up rates or clearance rates. And even, it used to be always that the classic bad clearance rates that we'd all seen and heard of were things like, you know, your bicycle is pinched and nothing is done. Stuff is stolen from your garden and nothing is done. You know, that kind of thing. But now it has become much more serious offences. There have been robberies, there have been assaults, and there are not clearance rates. And this is a well-documented and very serious problem when a legal system and a law enforcement system is under stress. And the other area, of course, where we've seen the police behaving very foolishly is going after people for saying mean things on Twitter, or the lass in Wales who was arrested for putting stickers up on telephone poles. I mean, this is just ridiculous nonsense when you've got thefts and robberies not being dealt with, which particularly the robberies, if the householder is at home, so it's what's known as a hot robbery, that's a serious offence that needs to be dealt with because of the way it can escalate.
Well, exactly. So should the police be looking at this Partygate then? What do you think?
Well, this is the problem. I'm on the other side of the aisle, and this is the thing. Traditionally, the lawyers and the police are always at loggerheads with each other because we tend to disagree on things. So it's very difficult for me to get a read on the police in a way that I can get a read on the legal profession, just simply because I've never been a copper, and whilst I've dealt with them, I just don't really know. My instinct is that, yes, it is a form of wasting police time. They're wasting their own time. But God knows what has gone on with this. I mean, the culture of impunity amongst all of them, whether it's Number 10, whether it's Keir Starmer, whether it's the senior civil service, you know, cocking a snook at legislation, it's not a good thing to have. It undermines trust in institutions.
But it's hardly as big as the sort of cash for honours or anything like that, where Tony Blair was a witness
Or the
instead of
expenses scandal either.
Yeah, these are things that are serious. We're talking about, you had a party, you broke some COVID rules which were extremely confusing. Everybody broke the rules in some respect. You may have even done it without even realising it, even though you meant to do the right thing. And it was retrospectively, is this how the police would normally operate? Because there's been a bit of conflict over that as well. People saying that the police don't normally go back into a penalty notice retrospectively as well. Is that true?
Well, no, all crime, that's a bit of a furphy. All crime investigation is a degree of retrospectivity. That's the point. The crime happened, but it was against the law, and therefore the police investigate. If there is sufficient evidence, then the Crown Prosecution Service prosecutes, or you can, in certain circumstances, if it's mine, I have a police prosecutor, although you can't in Scotland because the Scottish have a different system. So in that sense, no. Where it is a bit odd is the triviality of it. Unpaid fixed penalty notices, a good example of that are not dealt with, is if you've lived in an area where cars are abandoned, and I've seen this just happen in my own local area recently, it takes a very long time for the council to stick lots of notices all over them and then finally put the big yellow notice on it saying in 7 days we're going to come and take this car away because it's got all these unpaid fines attached to it and we're going to take it to the scrap metal merchant. You know, and that took, in my local area with a relatively efficient Hampshire constabulary, are pretty efficient, they're one of the better ones, that still took probably 6 months for that to be resolved.
I mean, it's just unbelievable time wasting. Do you think that Cressida Dick has any legal power then to stop Sue Gray publishing the report in full? And
No,
actually,
she doesn't.
What's
she doesn't.
And what would her motivation be for stopping it? Would it be that she was concerned that her officers would have been implicated because they didn't do anything? They must have heard the parties if there were parties.
No, this is actually a very straight evidentiary thing that's going on here. What's happened, the reason why you wouldn't want if the police do decide to proceed with are proceeding with a formal investigation and then perhaps a prosecution, I don't know, maybe, perhaps not just a fixed penalty notice, but a proper prosecution. The last thing you want in anything that it has the potential to proceed to trial is the possibility of witnesses finding out what other witnesses to the same incidents and events have said. Now, or what their view of the evidence is. Now, some people, bad people, when this happens, and it does happen, you finish up with a contaminated trial. It can cause a mistrial, which is where the witnesses collude with each other because they know each other's stories, and they get together and they come up with a plausible story, and then they spin it in court. Now, that's the extreme. It actually happens a lot less than people think it does. But the other thing that happens when people read other accounts or hear other accounts from other witnesses is that even honest people, people's memories are much more constructed than we realise they are. And one of the main ways that those memories of an event are constructed is not through us not seeing things properly. Humans are quite perceptive and can notice things. It's when we talk to other people and we think, oh yes, I can imagine that happening too. I'm sure that must have happened. And then you finish up with what lawyers call the course of evidence trial becoming an absolute mess. So that is the reason why Cressida Dick is saying don't put everybody's information in there, because if this goes to trial, everybody will know what every other witness is going to say, or very likely what they're going to say. It's just a straight evidentiary matter.
Well, it sort of can't happen really, because everyone's got a story. It's been out there in the press. I don't know any other sort of thing that would be brought to court if everybody's been given different stories of the information and the evidence already. Helen, thank you so much for joining me. It's been
That's
great
okay.
to talk to you. That's Helen Dale,
no problem.
Commentator and a lawyer. Right, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Ian says the police should never have been involved with anything to do with COVID restrictions. Full stop. It puts them between a rock and a hard place. Martina says it's important that police investigate this. No one should be above the law. Elizabeth says definitely not. Just leave Boris alone now. It's a witch hunt. Yeah, well, a lot of people would agree with those sentiments. Now, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue our great British debate this hour. I'm asking, should the police have got involved in Partygate? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, comedian Leo Kearse, and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albi Amankona. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you. It's 5:30. I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister will travel to Eastern Europe next week as part of efforts to prevent a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Downing Street say Boris Johnson is determined to accelerate diplomatic efforts and will also speak to President Putin over the phone. He's considering a range of options to discourage Russian military aggression and bolster NATO defences. A 60-year-old woman has been killed by a falling tree in Aberdeen as Storm Malik hit with winds of up to 100 miles per hour. Northern Power Grids say power supplies and mobile phone coverage has been affected in northern parts of the UK. Yellow weather warnings for wind remain in place across much of the country. A former Attorney General has criticised the Met Police over its handling of the Downing Street party allegations. Lord Morris says he's dismayed with Scotland Yard after Sue Gray was asked to ensure her report made minimal reference to the number 10 events they are currently looking into. It's led to claims that police were delaying its publication, something which they deny. A major overhaul of the highway code has come into force today. However, there are concerns that millions of drivers are unaware of the changes. New guidance means traffic will have to give way when pedestrians cross at a junction. The changes aim to boost protection for cyclists and pedestrians. Older people might have to go without food or heat this winter, according to research by the charity Age UK. Nearly a quarter of people over 65 say they'll be forced to choose between heating their home or buying food if bills increase substantially. And the Canadian singer Joni Mitchell has asked the streaming site Spotify to remove her music over COVID misinformation concerns. The Grammy award-winning musician says the site was allowing irresponsible people to spread lies that were costing people their lives. Well, you're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're watching GB News. We'll get straight back to Nana after this break.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
36 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. You're either listening on digital radio or watching on TV. So back to our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should the police have got involved in Partygate? Sue Gray is expected to hand her report to Downing Street shortly, but with significant details taken out. I mean, it's after the police asked for minimal reference to the made-to events that they are looking in order to avoid any prejudice to their investigation. So I'm asking, should the police have really got involved in it? It's the Great British Debate, and what are your thoughts? Get in touch, as you know, via the usual channels at GB News, via Twitter, or why not GBviews at gbnews.uk. Right, let's see what my panel make of this. I've got co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albi Amankona, and comedian Leo Kurth. Leo, I'm going to start with you then. The police, they're getting involved. 6% of crimes is all they're solving. I mean, could they really be doing this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've got better things to do than to police COVID restrictions that went for all through lockdown. But I don't think the police should be involved in this because the police were there. The Prime Minister has constant police protection. So the police obviously knew the party was going around.
If
going
it was
ahead.
a party, if it was a party.
You know, I don't want to jeopardise the investigation, but but if the alleged party and the alleged birthday cake were taking place, then the police were standing at the front door and would have seen the disco lights and heard the champagne corks popping. So I think it's ridiculous to have them policing themselves. And also, it's funny, you mentioned that the rules are confusing, so they might not have known, the civil servants and the government ministers might not have known what was... They made the rules!
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't
surely
mean...
the people who made the rules should understand the rules.
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether that counts for much at all. I mean, you know, they were confusing. So, for example, let me give you some of the rules, and I can remember them. So when you went to a restaurant, you could have 6 people from 6 different households all sitting together, but you could only have 2 people in your household to 2 different households in your own house, which then didn't make any sense at all. You could only be with 6 people, but if you're a family of 7 or even 8, then somebody has to sit on the sidelines. And in Scotland, they didn't count the children, but in England, they did. I mean, come on, it was ridiculous.
I mean, looking back at a lot of the rules now, you know, with COVID behind us, a lot of them do look, you know, out of proportion, I would say, and not really making sense, especially that there were different rules in the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. But on the specific point about whether or not the police should be getting involved in Partygate, I actually think they should be getting involved in Partygate. I mean, as of June 2021, I think over 110,000 fixed penalty notices had been issued for people breaking the COVID rules. And if you were one of those people who had been issued one of those fixed penalty notices, of course you would want the police to get involved involved and be issuing those fixed penalty notices to
What if you
people
were given a
in the government who had broken the rules.
Well, you should be given a refund, I think, and the government should be then forced to pay the fee. Or, alternatively, the government should be forced, those who've broken the rules should be forced to pay the fines, and everyone still has paid their fines. I mean, but that's all that would happen. Why should it then be a wider issue? Because people are saying, oh, get rid of Boris, he broke the rules. Do you believe it should now be a wider issue that he should go because of that?
I think we'll have to wait and see, and I hate to have to say this, but I think we will have to wait and see what the Sue Gray report says whenever it's released or redacted or whatever, because we just don't actually know, well, they're saying we don't actually know what happened. Obviously, there were some rule breakages that went on at Number 10 and in Downing Street, and it seems with the Leader of the Opposition as well, Keir Starmer and one of his MPs. And I think it's absolutely right that MPs wait and see what happens with the Sue Gray report, and then maybe they'll put in their 54 letters and there'll be a vote of no confidence.
Well, don't you think the rest of the world are slightly laughing at us that we should be involving ourselves in such a triviality when, of course, we've got, like, war potentially between Russia and Ukraine, we've got a cost of living crisis coming down the road. You know, there's so many of them. Even Keir Starmer, he had some sort of get-together as well with some people, but he said it wasn't a party. I mean, how far are we going to go with this?
This isn't a triviality. This goes right to the heart of trust in government. If the government are making rules, so they're setting these rules and then not following them themselves.
Are you surprised?
I mean, I am surprised. I am surprised.
That's what I'm saying. You're talking as though you're surprised. I'm not surprised.
I really think they should. And even Neil Ferguson, the doomsayer of COVID, he was breaking the rules to have an affair. Dominic Cummings was driving to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight. They were all at it. Matt Hancock was having an affair.
And those are only the ones that we know of, okay? Because
exactly.
We're scrutinising those in power, but if you start to scrutinise those who weren't in power, I mean, you had Barry Gardner going off to the Black Lives Matter protests and even tweeting about the fact that he was doing that. He was told off, but it was against the rules at the time. That was hardly policed properly by the police at all, but they couldn't wait to give you a ticket if you went off to a beach but weren't wearing a Black Lives Matter T-shirt. I mean, it's just...
Lots of us broke the rules,
exactly.
But we weren't making these ridiculous rules. So, I mean, I think it's fair enough that I met with friends and had dinner and breached COVID restrictions. I think that's, I disagreed with the rules, but I wasn't imposing the rules on other people. The government were.
So because you broke the rules, but you disagreed with the rules, but you broke them, you would say that those who made the rules, who also did what you did, should be punished?
Yeah.
With what, a fixed penalty notice or lose their jobs?
Well, I mean, if a fixed penalty notice is the punishment, then, yeah, that's the punishment.
That is the punishment.
Yeah.
Why should they be fired?
They can all have a whip round, pay for it.
I think the argument for people saying there needs to be change at Number 10 isn't necessarily because the rules were broken. It's because it's quite clear to me and to many other people that the Prime Minister's been getting some very bad advice since, I think, the Owen Paterson scandal. And I think the way that Number 10 has responded to a lot of events has been poor. And I think with better responses to things, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in now.
Well, I would agree that obviously the narrative needs to change at Number 10. And that's a whole different thing. Having parties like that, even without restrictions, I mean, it's great, but hello, we're the taxpayers, we're sort of funding you guys. You should actually be doing the job of running government. So to me, on that level, but I don't believe that people who broke those rules should be fired simply because there's too much to do. And can you imagine if we're going for another general election or the mess? You saw what they did with Brexit. Ugh. Let's not go there. Well, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome one of our great British voices. Now, this is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you think about the topics that we are discussing. Jonathan James is a managing director at Tregarthen. I haven't said that right. How do you say it, Jonathan? You're there in Cornwall.
Tregarthen, Nana. You're almost
I was almost there. Tregarthen. See, I got it now. You're there in Cornwall. Must be lovely. Jonathan, do you think that the police should get involved in Partygate?
I think everyone I've spoken to this week thinks it's a giant storm in a teacup, and we should be doing a lot less of that and a bit more of the patriotic, get a bit of context, a bit of balance. And I actually sell tea grown in England all over the UK, and I've been travelling quite a bit this week, talking to, I would say, classic tea drinkers, which is the majority of this country. It's our national drink, as you know. And they just think it's not credible to be investigating cake, for goodness sake. We all love cake. Come on, it's not a normal house. If you've been to Number 10, I've been there a few times as an export champion, and it's, this guy lives on the job, and we want him to do that. He wasn't voted in to be an average Joe, and, people he must show integrity and a bit of humility, but I just think people think perfect could be the enemy of good, and he's got a lot done. The the export community just want to get on, be patriotic, sell great British stories around the world. And everyone I speak to overseas just think this is a really eccentric British nonsense. And I think that chap that drove to Barnard Castle to test his eyes looks like he might be behind all this. And people can see through that, even if he can't. So I think put the kettle on and let's enjoy the rest of the Roaring Twenties.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jonathan. That's Jonathan Jones. He's a great British voice. He's there in Cornwall. Well, back to the panel. See? That's what I said, a storm in a teacup. He's on it. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, OK. Is this something that you destabilise a leader for? And is this really where we want to go as a country? Because, and I've said it before, it's like a headless chicken. Cut off the head, but then you can put another head on. The body is exactly the same. It's not going to change anything, really, apart from the person visually at the top who appears to be in power, but probably isn't really controlling that much at all.
No, I disagree. I mean, I think some leaders, some politicians have a great deal of personal credibility and responsibility. Like Liz Truss, for example.
Liz Truss. Trust. Put your trust in trust.
Yeah. In Liz we trust, I think.
In Liz we trust, yeah.
Boris has always been, his brand is lying and being a buffoon. And, we've known that. And it's fun to have somebody like a mayor who's like that. But being Prime Minister requires a certain level of gravitas.
Well, that's
and
what
taking
you
the job
say.
seriously.
Well, the people at the EU seem to be slightly afraid of him. He was Theresa May, who had all the qualities that you've talked about with the kitten heels and the little, My mum said, "Oh, that Theresa May, look at that. She's going back and forward. Nothing is happening. Ah, that woman, almost as bad as Nicola Sturgeon." Except Nicola gets things done. Theresa didn't get anything. Well, things done, whether you like them or not. I mean, but she does. But the thing is, whether you like Boris or not, he gets things done. Look at Theresa May. The person that you've described sounds a bit like Theresa May. What did she get done? Nothing.
But, Nana, I think it's possible to both accept that Boris Johnson has done some fantastic things since he's been in government. He got rid of the Brexit deadlock. I think he handled the vaccine programme very well. We got the fastest growing economy in the OECD. And also appreciate that he made rules and then broke them. Like, that is a bad thing to do. And people are, despite what the gentleman said earlier, a lot of people are very angry about what's happened. And I can understand why they're upset, which is why it's important that we get to the bottom of it and then, the punishments that need to be implemented
Which are fine.
Are implemented.
Absolutely. We get to the bottom of it and move on. I can see why people are upset because they followed the rules foolishly. Not that I didn't follow the rules. Of course I followed them as best I could, but my support bubble became extremely big. There were people in that bubble that I'm like, I don't know whether I want you in it. Right. So today I'm asking, should the police have got involved in Partygate? And lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Johnny says, I'm just so sick of everyone going on about Partygate. Martin said, no, it's a complete waste of resources. Terry says, I think it's a bit suspicious given this has really taken the heat off Boris. Toto says, no, it's a complete waste of resources. Kaz said, surely the police should investigate themselves. I think they do. I think it's called the Police Complaints Commission. They let everyone in Downing Street. They let everyone in to Downing Street. If there really were parties, how did the police not see it? Alan says, I think everyone's just too harsh on the Met Police. They risk their personal safety and well-being to keep law and order. Well, I actually agree with that as well. That is true. And I think we have to remember that Boris is human. He's a man just like all of us. We are all fallible. Now, let's move on because an estimated 1.3 million people in the UK are said to be experiencing symptoms of long COVID. A new study by scientists at Oxford, Sheffield, Cardiff and Manchester universities suggests that some people with the condition may have hidden damage to their lungs. The impact wasn't being picked up in routine scans. The study's co-chief investigator, Professor Fergus Gleeson from the University of Oxford, joins me now. Fergus, thank you very much for joining me. This is very interesting research. Can you give us a bit more detail as to what you found?
Sure. The first thing to do is explain how the Xenon works. So Xenon works just like oxygen. You breathe it in and we can watch it go down the lungs, across the alveolar membrane, the lining of your lungs into your bloodstream. So we can see that happen and we can see where a problem is. Last year, we looked at patients who just left hospital with COVID and we found that even though their scans had got better, they still had damage in their lungs and the Xenon, which is the same as oxygen, wasn't crossing into their lungs as well as it might. So we've just started, this is the pilot study of a much larger study to see if patients with long COVID that have breathlessness, because as you know, there's lots of symptoms from long COVID, you have brain fog, muscle ache, fatigue, So we're just looking at patients with breathlessness seen in a long COVID clinic, and we are doing Xenon scans on them and CT scans, and we found that some of them, 7 out of the 11 we've studied so far, have similar damage to those that have left hospital. They have normal CT scans, but the Xenon's abnormal.
Now, with the scans and the damage that you saw, was it stuff that was actually repairable by the body, or was it something that actually was damage that would be permanent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is we don't know. Hopefully that patients with long COVID, much like the patients that were in hospital with COVID, will slowly but surely get better. At the moment, we've only scanned them once, and we're going to scan them over 3 and 12 months to see if it gets better, but we don't know the answer to your question yet.
I mean, this is the worry, isn't it? I mean, it's a small study, though, so what's next?
So we've been funded by the NIHR to do a study in 200 patients with long COVID in the 4 centres. We're also going to study patients that have got long COVID but not got breathlessness, and we're going to see if they also have damage to their lungs or abnormalities within their lungs. And we're going to study patients that have had COVID who've fully recovered and see if what we're seeing is literally in the patients with breathlessness or not. So that's what's next. That'll take about another 18 months. But we thought we'd better let the scientific community and the long COVID community know what's going on, because we have found an abnormality and we need to see if it's significant.
Wow, it's fascinating, isn't it? So this long COVID, and for the people that, because I mean, I think I had COVID at the very beginning, and for me it left me with a that I keep doing, which is really annoying, but it's been like that for a long time. Is that one of the things?
Well yours sounds... I'm a scientist, a doctor scientist that looks at scans as opposed to patients, which my wife says is a blessing for the patient. But yours sounds as though it's up in your throat as opposed to down in your lung.
Oh.
So I can't answer that. We're specifically looking at patients that are breathless. Breathlessness is the commonest symptom of patients who've got long COVID, so we're looking at that specifically.
Well, listen, Fergus, thank you so much for joining us. It's really good to speak to you. That's Fergus Gleeson.
Pleasure.
He's a professor of radiology at the University of Oxford. Wow, fascinating stuff. Well, listen, it's time for my quick fire quiz as I test my panel on some of the day's other stories. I'm with comedian Leo Kearse and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. They've both got buzzers. Leo, press your buzzer now. Albie, your buzzer. Fabulous. Right. So that's it. Those are the sounds. Right, let's start with question number 1. OK, so what sold at auction for £170,000 this week? Was it A, the first edition of James Bond's novels? Was it B, Cristiano Ronaldo's first Manchester United shirt? Or C, Banksy's model village stable? Please play along at home. Answer. What do you think? A, B or C? Albie.
I've got no idea, so I'm going to go for A.
A is the correct answer. Well done. Very good. Yes, it was indeed. Yes, A. The 8 first edition James Bond novels, which were signed by Ian Fleming, sold for £170,000. Is that all? They were discovered in a library in a holiday home of the late author Paul Galitko. Have you ever stumbled on anything of value in your house? I'm going to start with Leo, because I bet there's nothing in it.
I found a £20 note.
Did you?
It's worth 20 quid. Had it appraised.
Very good.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I don't think I have. But I've never looked, to be honest.
No, that's so sad.
Have you?
No, one time I found a £5 that was in my back pocket of my jeans.
Oh, I love it. It's free money.
Isn't it? Literally, well, ish. Question 2. OK, true or false? Food, which is years past its best before date, has been banned from sale online. True or false? Oh, I don't know. I think it was Leo got there slightly quicker. Go on, Leo.
Is that true?
Well, I don't know. Let me see. No, it's false. It's been banned. Leo, you usually win this. You're on a losing streak. I think you lost the last one as well to Calvin. Online sales of food years past its sell-by date is actually going strong. Ambient foods such as tinned products like biscuits and sauces can be sold years after their best before date. OK, I can tell you that, it says it's false here. I've been told you're right, but you said...
So am I right or wrong?
I don't know. It says false on my sheet. It says false. It hasn't been banned. Does that make it true? Do you know what? False, it hasn't been banned.
Sue Gray needs to investigate.
Sue Gray. Sue, if you've got time, when you finish publishing or not publishing the full thing, let us know. Well, Northamptonshire-based Best Before It's Gone is selling 220ml bottles of Heinz mustard with a best before date of June the 20th, 2019. So for just 1 pence. Panels.
Does that include delivery?
I don't know, that's probably like $2.99. My daughter keeps doing that. She buys some awful stuff on that terrible website, I won't say. But the delivery is usually more expensive than the clothing, which I'd hate to... She should never get in front of an open flame after any of those. Right, so what about
after
you?
eating that sauce.
Do you eat food that's gone best before?
Yeah, of course, the nose never lies. If you're worried if milk or cheese isn't good...
Give it a sniff.
Give it a sniff.
Give it a sniff.
Yeah, we're animals. We can tell.
Absolutely.
Do you do that as well?
Oh, of course I do. My sister doesn't do it at all, but I do, because I think there is so much food wastage that goes on in supermarkets because of best before dates, and you can easily just give it a sniff, and if it smells bad, don't eat it or drink it. It's very simple.
That's quite simple. OK, question 3. Who's been excluded from applying for a job as a builder in Chatham? Is it A, snowflakes? Is it B, former offenders? Or C, brunettes? Oh, I think that was Albie.
Is it snowflakes?
It is, of course, it's snowflakes. A job advert for the labourer in Chatham has explicitly banned snowflakes from applying. Adam Whedon, who owns the construction company that put it up, said that he'd burnt through 10 work-shy men in a year who love their phone and want their mummy to pamper them. So should employers ban snowflakes from applying? Yes or no, Albie?
How do you define a snowflake?
Well, he just defined it.
I think it would be difficult for a large employer to define a snowflake.
Well, he managed it. What do you think? So
I think it'd be hard.
Yes or no, Albie?
Well, no, I don't think they should ban snowflakes.
Well, this isn't like my definition of a snowflake, but yeah, I mean, obviously you need somebody who's going to be tough, who's going to stay there for the full working day and lug all the stuff around. So yeah, it's fair enough for him to want somebody who's tough enough to do it.
With them as well, ban them. Question 4. Nearest answer wins. How many sick days are people now allowed to take off work without a doctor's note? Albie.
Is it 10?
What's your guess?
9?
Oh dear, you should have gone up. Albie wins it. It's 28 days.
28 days?
That terrible movie. That terrible, good film, that, I've got to say. 28 days later, even worse. Right, let's have a look quickly. Workers have been told that they can now take 28 days off sick without needing a doctor's note. It's so that GPs can focus on the booster rollout. OK, question 5. Who has Elon Musk offered $5,000 to take down their Twitter account? Is it A, Hillary Clinton, B, a 19-year-old who tracks his private jet, or C, a 55-year-old who takes pictures of what's in the bins outside Musk's office? Yes. Go on, then.
I really hope it's the guy who takes photos of what's in the bins outside his office.
It isn't, actually. Albie, what do you think?
Is it B?
Yes, it's B. Well done, Albie. You win it. Well done. Elon Musk offered 19-year-old $5,000 to take down a Twitter account that tracks his private jet. 4-0 to you, Albie. Well done. And listen, I've got to say thank you so much to my fabulous panel. Comedian Leo Curse and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. And as ever, thank you for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow at 4. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
So looking ahead then to this evening's weather, and the UK looking generally drier and brighter with winds easing as Storm Malik thankfully passes. Let's look at the detail. Rain and cloud clearing throughout the southwest and southeast of England to leave a dry and fine evening. Temperatures dropping tonight though, leading to a frost for many. A fine evening across the southeast of England. Skies clearing this evening to make way for a chilly night and allowing frost again to form in some places. Moving across to Wales now, and there will be the odd light shower there this evening. Those skies will clear, allowing temperatures to drop as well. And zooming into the Midlands, well, there will be some light showers around to the end of the day, but dry for most people there. Let's take you then across to the Pennines now, and that rather blustery day that it's been so far easing off into this evening, and the skies also across the Pennines clearing eventually, making way for a cold night again and a frost forming for many. Scattered showers affecting Scotland this evening, some turning wintry over high ground. A calmer night though, lighter winds. And then moving over to Northern Ireland. Some isolated showers across the area today. Tonight, winds easing and some clear spells, allowing temperatures to drop and frost once again. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.